Welcome back to the second session of commercial and academic translation. We stopped last time on chapter 3, pedagogical frameworks for translation learning. Effective translation education requires reposed pedagogical frameworks that guide both teaching, practice, and curriculum design. Among the most influential theoretical foundations is sociocultural theory, which emphasizes that learning occurs through social interaction and cultural context. Applied to translation pedagogy, this theory recognize that translation is not merely a linguistic exercise, but socially suited practice embedded in cultural systems. Sociocultural approaches to translation education prioritize creating interactive learning environments where students engage in collaborative translation tasks, peer review, and group problem solving rather than viewing translation as an individual cognitive process. This framework understands it as a social activity where meaning is negotiated, cultural knowledge is shared, and professional practices are collaboratively developed. Students who learn not just from instructors but from each other, building a community of practice that mirrors professional translation environments. Cultural sensitivity stands at the core of this pedagogical approach. Translation students must develop awareness of their own cultural assumptions and biases while cultivating openness to different world views and communication styles. This involves explicit instruction about cultural differences in rhetoric, argumentation, humor, politeness, and many other dimensions of communication. Interactive learning, group activities, and collaborative projects that mirror real world translation scenarios, cultural awareness, explicit instruction on cultural differences and their implications for translation practice, reflective practice, structured opportunities for students to analyze their translation decisions and learn from experience. Project-based learning (PBL) represents another powerful pedagogical framework for translation education. In PBL approaches students work on extended authentic translation projects that require them to apply multiple skills and make complex professional decisions. Rather than completing isolated exercises, students might translate an entire document, research terminology, consult with subject matter experts, and revise their work based on feedback, mirroring the complete translation workflow. PPL develops critical thinking by requiring students to analyze translation problems, evaluate multiple solutions, and justify their decisions. It fosters collaboration through group projects where students must coordinate efforts, negotiate disagreements, and produce unified translations. Most importantly, PPL builds professional competencies by measuring students in realistic scenarios that prepare them for the challenges they face as practicing translators, from managing deadlines to communicating with clients, integrating cross-cultural competence and critical thinking. A development of cross-cultural competence represent a foundational pillar of translation education, extending far beyond superficial knowledge of customs or stereotypes. Through cross-cultural Competence involves cultivating deep awareness of how culture shapes cognitive communication and values, and recognizing how these cultural frameworks influence both source text and translation decisions. Cultural self awareness, understanding one's own cultural assumptions and how they influence interpretation of texts and translation choices. Ethical sensitivity, recognizing the power dynamics and ethical implications of translation decisions across cultures. Openness to difference, developing a genuine curiosity about and respect for diverse cultural perspectives and communication styles. Cultural knowledge, building a substantive understanding of the histories, values, and the social structures of the cultures involved in translation, adaptive strategies, learning to adjust translation approaches based on cultural context, purpose, and audience applications or expectations. Critical thinking in translation education encourages students to question assumptions, analyze implications, and evaluate alternatives systematically rather than accepting the first translation solution that comes to mind. Critical thinkers examine multiple possibilities, consider their respective strengths and weaknesses, and make informed decisions based on reasoned judgment. This reflective practice involves asking probing questions. What cultural assumptions underlie this source text? How might different audiences interpret this translation? What are the potential consequences of various translation choices? Encouraging reflective practice means creating structured opportunities for students to analyze their own translation process. This might involve translation journals where students document their decision-making, post-project analysis where they evaluate what worked and what didn't, or peer review sessions where students explain and defend their translation choices. Through reflection, students develop metacognitive awareness, understanding not just what they are doing, but why and how they might improve. The integration of ethical considerations throughout translation education ensures that students recognize their professional responsibility and the social impact. Translators wield significant power as cultural mediators who determine how messages cross linguistic boundaries. The power, career, ethical obligations to represent source text fairly, to serve a diverse audience's responsibility to acknowledge the limits to one's competence and and to consider the broader social implications of translation work. By wrestling with ethical dilemmas throughout their education, students develop the moral framework necessary for responsible professional practice. Curriculum design combining theory and practice, theoretical foundation. Effective translation curricula begin with solid theoretical grounding. Lectures introduce students to translation theory, linguistic principles, cultural framework, and the professional standards. Students learn about different translation approaches from literal to adaptive, and when each is appropriate, they study how meaning is constructed and conveyed across languages, and they explore the cultural dimensions of communication. However, they alone cannot produce content. The curriculum must balance conceptual understanding with hands-on application, ensuring that students can put theoretical knowledge into practice. Practical application, practical exercises immerse students in translation work from the early stages of their education, beginning with shorter texts and progressing to complex documents. Students develop their skills incrementally. Real world translation tasks, working with actual documents that need translation for authentic purposes provide the most valuable learning experiences, offering students a taste of professional practice. Foundational lectures, introduction to translation theory, terminology, and professional standards through a structured classroom instruction. Guided exercises, supervised translation practice with progressively challenging text combined by instructor feedback and correction. Real-world projects, authentic translation assignment that mirror professional scenarios requiring independent problem-solving and decision-making. Collaborative learning, peer review, group projects, and discussion sessions that build the community and expose students to diverse perspectives. Uh, Professional development, mentorship, internship, and connections with practicing translators that facilitate translation or transition into the profession. The use of bilingual administrators and experienced professionals as instructors enriches translation education significantly. These instructors bring real world experience and industry insights that purely academic approaches cannot provide. They share practical strategies, warn students about common pitfalls, and help students understand the realities of professional translation work. Peer collaboration is equally valuable. Students learn tremendously from each other through group projects, peer review, and shared problem solving. Different students bring different strengths, culture, knowledge, and perspectives, creating rich learning environments. Assessment methods in translation curricula should be diverse and authentic. Presentations allow students to explain and defend their translation decisions, developing their ability to articulate professional reasoning. Traditional exams can assess theoretical knowledge and translation skills under time pressure. Portfolio reviews showcases students' development over time, demonstrating their range of capabilities across different text types and translation scenarios. Together, these assessment approaches provide a comprehensive evaluation of students' readiness for professional practice. Translation of academic texts, preparatory work. Students analyze examples of published academic translations, noting how translators handled discipline specific terminology, citation conventions, and argumentation structures. The study style guides relevant to academic publishing in their target language and create specialized glossaries for their chosen field of focus, for example, psychology, history, and economics. Initial translation, each student receives a session of a scholarly article, approximately 1,500 to 2,000 words to translate individually. This might be from a journal article, conference paper, or academic book chapter. Self-review after completing the initial draft, students set their work aside briefly, then return to review it critically, checking for accuracy, clarity, consistency, and adherence to academic conventions. Now let's go for peer exchange. A student exchange translations with a partner who reviews for accuracy, readability, and scholarly appropriateness, providing detailed written feedback. Revision process, incorporating peer feedback and their own critical insights. Students produce a revised vision that represents their best professional work. Expert consultation, selected sections as reviewed by subject matter experts or experienced translators who provide final feedback on terminology choices and field-specific conventions. Accuracy verification, all claims, data, and citations must be rendered with complete accuracy, preserving the author's scholarly contribution. Tune maintenance, The formal objective tone typical of academic writing must be preserved while adapting to target language conventions, contextual appropriateness, culture references, and examples must be handled in ways that make sense to the target audience without distorting the original meaning. Ethical and professional standards in translation. The translation profession is governed by ethical principles that protect both client and end users while maintaining the integrity of translation process. These professional standards are not merely abstract ideals but practical guidance or guidelines that shape daily translation work and distinguish professional translators from casual bilinguals. Confidentiality translators regularly handle sensitive information, trade secrets, personal data, proprietary research, legal documents that must be protected scrupulously. Professional confidentiality means never disclosing client information, securing translation files appropriately, and being mindful of who might overhear discussions of translation work. This obligation continues even after projects conclude, and violation confidentiality can have serious professional and legal consequences. Accuracy. The ethical obligation to accuracy extends beyond merely avoiding outright errors. Professional translators must represent source texts faithfully, convey all relevant information, and ensure their translations serve the intended purpose. This means refusing projects for which they lack adequate competence, conducting necessary research, and acknowledging when texts contain ambiguities or problems that affect translatability. Accuracy also requires translators to resist pressure to modify messages in ways that distort the source text's meaning. Impartiality. Professional translators serve as neutral conduits for communication, conveying messages accurately, regardless of their personal opinions about the content. Impartiality means translating all parts of a text faithfully, not omitting or softening passages one disagrees with, and not allowing personal biases to color translation choices. However, impartiality does not require translators to work on texts that violate their fundamental ethical values. Most professional codes acknowledge translators' right to decline assignments that conflict with their conscience. The translator's role as cultural mediator carries particular ethical weight. Translators bridge not just languages but entire cultural systems, and their choices influence how cultures perceive perceive and understand each other. This mediating role demands sensitivity to power dynamics, awareness of stereotypes, and commitment to representing both sources and target cultures fairly. Ethical cultural mediation means avoiding exoticization, challenging prejudices when appropriate, and striving for translations that foster mutual understandings rather than reinforcing cultural divisions. Ethical dilemmas in practice. Commercial translation dilemma. A translator work on marketing materials realizes that claims made about a product are exaggerated or potentially misleading. That the translator raise concerns with the client, translate the problematic claims faithfully, or decline the project. Professional ethics suggests that translators should inform clients about potential problems, with recognizing that final responsibility for content lies with the client, not the translator. Academic translation dilemma. While translating a research article, a translator notices what appears to be a methodological error that undermine the study's findings. Should the translator point this out potentially, questioning the scholars' work, or simply translate faithfully? Professional standards suggest that translators should note such concerns about acknowledge that assessing research validity is the responsibility of peer reviews and editors, not translators. Technology and tools in translation practice, types of translation technology, translation memory, TM, system that store previously translated segments for reuse, terminology management, databases ensuring consistent use of specialized terms, machine translation, MT, engines providing initial drafts for post-editing, quality assurance, tools checking for errors and inconsistencies, project management, platforms coordinating workflow and collaboration. The evaluation of translation technology. Translation technology has evolved dramatically over recent decades, transforming professional translation practice. Computer-assisted translation CAT tools have become industry standard, fundamentally changing how translators work. Understanding and effective using these technologies is now essential for professional success. Enhanced consistency CAD tools ensure that identical or similar segments are translated consistently throughout a document or across multiple projects. This consistency is particularly valuable for technical documentation, legal contracts, and other texts where terminology mastery remain uniform. Translation memories prevent the consistency that can occur when translators forget how they handled a term earlier in a long document. Improved efficiency by reusing previous translations and automating repetitive tasks. CAT tools significantly increase translator productivity. Projects with substantial repetition, such as updated versions of software manuals or animal reports with similar structure, can be completed much faster. This efficiency allows translators to handle more projects or invest more time in the creative, interpretive aspects of translation that require human judgment. Better terminology management. Specialized terminology databases integrated with CAT tools help translators maintain consistency with client-approved terms and industry standard terminology. These databases can be shared across the translation teams, ensuring that everyone working on a project uses the same translation for specialized vocabulary. For large corporations or technical fields with extensive proprietary terminology, this capability is invaluable. Despite these significant benefits, translation technology has important limitations. CAT tools and machine translation systems lack cultural understanding. They cannot recognize when literal translation would create cultural awkwardness or offense. They struggle with context-dependent meaning, idiomatic expressions, role play, and other linguistic phenomena that require cultural knowledge and creative thinking. Machine translation, in particular, can produce grammatically correct but pragmatically inappropriate or culturally insensitive translations. Most critically, technology cannot replace human judgment about translation purpose, audience needs, and strategic choices. A translator work on a marketing slogan must consider emotional impact, brand identity, and the cultural resonance factors that algorithms cannot adequately assess. Similarly, academic translation requires understanding theoretical nuances and scholarly conventions that extend far beyond world level equivalence. The future of translation involves symbiosis between human expertise and technological tools. Successful translators will be those who can leverage technology's strengths, speed, consistency, memory, while applying uniquely human capabilities, cultural sensitivity, contextual understanding, creative problem solving, and ethical judgment. Translation education must therefore prepare students to use technology effectively while developing the cognitive, cultural, and the ethical competencies that remain irreplaceably human. Preparing for a career in translation. The translation profession offers diverse career pathways, each with distinctive characteristics, opportunities, and challenges. Understanding these options helps aspiring translators make informed decisions about specialization and professional development. Freelance translation, independent translators work with multiple clients, enjoying flexibility and variety, but assuming responsibility for finding clients, managing finances, and handling administrative tasks. Freelancing offers autonomy but requires entrepreneurial or entrepreneurial skills and self-discipline. In-house corporate positions, translators employed by corporations focus on that organization's materials, product documentation, interior communications, marketing content. These positions offer stability, benefits, and deep familiarity with the company's products and terminology. Translation agencies working for translation agencies provide the steady workflow, professional support, and opportunities to work on diverse projects. Agency translators benefit from quality assurance processes, project management support, and colleague collaboration. Government and internal organizations, translators working for governmental bodies or international institutions, UN, EU, etc., handle diplomatic, legal, and policy documents. These prestigious positions require excellent language skills and often security clearness. Essential skills and qualifications, core competencies, advanced proficiency in at least two languages, including deep understanding of cultural nuances, excellent writing ability to the target language, research skills for investing unfamiliar terminology and concepts, subject matter expertise in at least one specialized field, technological competence with CAD tools and other translation software, project management, and time management capabilities. Professional development, formal education, bachelor or master's degree in translation studies, linguistics, or relevant fields. Professional certification credentials from bodies like ATA, American Translators Associations, demonstrating verified competence. Specialization, focused expertise in legal, medical, technical, literary, or other translation domains, continuing education, workshops, webinars, conferences, and courses, maintaining current knowledge. Now let's go for the path. The path to becoming a professional translator requires sustained commitment to learning and development. Initial formal education provides foundational knowledge, but expertise develops through years of practice, feedback, and continuous learning. Successful translators view their careers as lifelong learning journeys, constantly refining their skills, expanding their knowledge, and adapting to evolving technologies and market demands. This commitment to exercise distinguishes the true professionals from individuals who simply know multiple languages. Translation, bridging walls. Commercial versus academic translation. We explored the fundamental distinctions between these two translation domains. Commercial translation focuses on business communications requiring accuracy, cultural adaptation, and persuasive impact. Academic translation demands precision, terminology mastery, and scholarly integrity. Each field requires specialized knowledge and distinct skill sets, though both share core principles of accuracy and ethical practice. Practical skills development. Through case studies and learning objects, you engaged with real-world translation scenarios in both commercial and academic contexts. These practice exercises demonstrated how theoretical knowledge applies to actual translation, challenges from navigating legal terminology in international contracts to preserving scholarly tone in research articles. The emphasis on on revision and the feedback reflected the iterative nature of professional translation work. Now let's move to the cross-culture competence. Culture awareness emerged as central to effective translation. We examined how culture shapes communication, influences interpretation, and affects translation decisions. Developing cultural sensitivity means understanding one's own cultural assumptions, respecting diverse perspectives, and making informed choices about cultural adaptation in translation. This competence distinguishes professional translators from mere linguistic converters. Professional ethics and standards. The presentation emphasized translation as a professional governed by ethical principles, confidentiality, accuracy, and impartiality. We explored the translator's role as cultural mediator, acknowledging the responsibility that comes with facilitating communication across cultural boundaries. Ethical dilemmas illustrated the complexity of professional decision making and the importance of maintaining integrity and translating practice. Technology integration, understanding translation technologies, capabilities, and limitations emerged as essential for modern translators. CAT tools enhance efficiency and consistency, but human judgment remains irreplaceable for cultural sensitivity, context, understanding, and creative problem solving. Professional success requires effectively combining technological tools with uniquely human competences. Translation plays a critical role in our interconnected world, enabling global commerce, facilitating international research collaboration, and fostering cross-cultural understanding. As you move forward in your translation studies and career, remember that your work had genuine impact, helping businesses reach new markets, making research accessible across language, and building bridges between cultures. The skills you've begun developing through this material form the foundations for meaningful professional contributions to global communication. Apply what you've learned with both technical competence and ethical awareness. Strive for accuracy, strive for accuracy and professionalism in every project, but also remain mindful of your role as a cultural mediator whose decisions influence how people across cultures perceive and understand each other. Let your practice be guided by excellence, integrity, and a commitment to facilitating genuine understanding across linguistic and cultural boundaries. Conclusion: empowering students as future translators. As we conclude this comprehensive exploration of commercial and academic translation, we invite you to embrace a profound opportunity that a translation career represents. In an increasingly interconnected world where communication across languages and cultures is essential, translators serve as vital facilitators, of understanding, commerce, knowledge exchange, and the human connection. Your journey toward becoming a professional translator will be challenging, demanding continuous learning and refinement of your skills, but it will also be deeply rewarding, offering opportunities to engage with diverse subjects, connect with people from around the world, and make tangible contributions to global communication. Every translation you produce will serve a purpose, whether enabling a business transaction, making research accessible, or simply helping people understanding each other across linguistic divides. Translation is not a matter of words only, it's a matter of making intelligible a whole culture. Anthony Burgess. Embrace cultural diversity as the foundation of your practice. Recognize that your role extends beyond linguistic conversion to cultural mediation. You help cultures understand each other, challenge stereotypes, and build connections. Approach this responsibility with humility, curiosity, and respect for the complexity of cultural difference. Commit to excellence. Professional translation demands unwavering commitment to quality, accuracy, and continuous improvement. Set high standards for your work and constantly push yourself to exceed them. Practice ethical responsibility, let integrity guide all your professional decisions. Maintain confidentiality, respect texts faithfully, acknowledge limitations, and consider the social impact of your translation work. Embrace lifelong learning. View your career as a continuous learning journey. Stay current with developments in translation technology, expand your subject matter expertise, and deepen your cultural knowledge throughout your professional life. Build professional networks, connect with other translators, join professional associations like ترجمان العرب, for example, ATA, American Translator Association, attend conferences and participate in translation communities. For example, PROS, Verso, Translators Without Borders, Translators Cafe. These connections provide support, learning opportunities, and professional advancements. The transformative power of translation extends far beyond individual texts or transactions. Through your work as a translator, you will help businesses reach new markets and build international partnerships. You will enable researchers to share their findings across linguistic boundaries, contributing to global knowledge advancement. You will help individuals access information, services, and opportunities that language barriers might otherwise deny them. In essence, you will connect worlds that language might otherwise keep separate. This presentation has provided you with foundational knowledge about commercial and academic translation, introduced the pedagogical frameworks and the practical skills, and explored the ethical dimensions of translation practice, but this is only the beginning. The field of translation studies is vast and continually evolving, offering endless opportunity for specialization and growth. We encourage you to continue exploring translation theory, experiment with different translation domains, seek mentorship from experienced professionals, and pursue advanced education in translation studies. Whether you ultimately specialize in commercial or academic translation, work as a freelancer or within an organization, focus on literary, legal, technical, or another specialized field, your success will depend on the foundation you're building now. Apply yourself diligently to developing the linguistic, cultural, technical, and ethical competencies that define professional excellence. The world needs skilled, ethical, culture sensitive translators who can facilitate understanding across the linguistic and cultural boundaries that often divide us. Go forth and connect worlds. So we'll stop here and we'll continue, inshallah, the revision of chapter 3 next session tomorrow. Until tomorrow, tata for now.